Hello there. Hi there. What's going on, everybody? It's John Dickinson and it's Kyle Har. It's our Dubs Draft Show with JD here on the Sports Leader on the YouTube page. Busy times. Kyle, good to be with you, man. You were over in Japan. I've been doing the morning show, filling in here over the course of the last week, and a lot of Giants drama. But we're going to focus on the Dubs here for the next 45 minutes or hour. As the pick is in, and the Warriors get the Dominican LeBron, and the guy that may have been I don't know, the highest rated draft prospect on Dubs OT. I think in the shows that we did in the aftermath of the season, Yaxel Lendeborg. I remember being in LA for the game that everybody remembers in the play-in tournament where the Warriors beat the Clippers to advance to take on Phoenix before they got beat. And Yaxel Lendeborg was there at the Intuit Dome and dapped it up and hugged Steph Curry right there on the court after Steph was done with his pregame warm-up. I can't remember exactly why he was there. I think some award for some of the college players, some ceremony was going on. It was right after the season. And, of course, Michigan had won the national championship. So, yeah, he was there that night. And now here we are 2 months later, and he's a member of the Golden State Warriors, picked at number 11. There was a little drama in the immediate lead up to, what would happen at number 11. But it was kind of boring at the beginning of the night. So, yeah, just good to be with you, Kyle.
Yeah, good to be with you. Just got back from Japan a few days ago. That was super fun. I mean, I would suggest to anyone listening that to take a trip to Japan. I mean, it's so nice and it's affordable once you get there. The yen is a little weak, but yeah, how about the draft? I mean, yeah, kind of chalk to lead up to the Warriors pick, or at least until the Mavs selected the other Michigan wing. But then the thing that kind of caught my eye was what the hell was going on in the Warriors war room.
Yeah, Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy having a what appeared to be a pretty heated conversation with Dunleavy, trying to take charge in the moment where it was being reported that the Warriors were open for business at 11, looking to maybe trade back. And I think this is something that was sort of the easier said than done, kind of a thing if they couldn't get their guy. And look, I think Braden Burries was their first choice among the players that were going to be potentially available for the Warriors at number 11, the guard from Arizona. And I know Tim Kawakami put this out there just on social media. He thought there may have been some things thrown in the Warrior draft room when Burries ended up going the pick right before the Warriors to Milwaukee. And, of course, Milwaukee finally makes the Giannis trade as he's headed to Miami. So the Bucks were going to pick with their own selection at 10. And then now with Miami's pick that they picked up in the trade last night at number 13. So, yeah, you go through the first 8 picks, and I think it was all chalk, basically, at that point. And so you run through it. And, we didn't know Washington, would they go DeBansa or Darren Peterson? There was some debate that maybe that was going to flip-flop, although I think most people thought it was going to be DeBansa for the longer period of time. But we did know that DeBansa, Peterson, Boozer, Wilson were going to be, some combination of the top 4. And then the question would be, how many of the guards in the next 5, because there was the group of 5 guards, right? Keaton Wagler, who went 5 to the Clippers. And I think the Clippers, there was a lot of reporting and speculation that they might be looking to allow a team to move into that spot that had their eye on somebody that they definitely wanted to get. But the Clippers end up taking Keaton Wagler. Brooklyn takes Michael Brown, and it was just chalk through the first 6. Acuff, we've talked about him for months being the guy that Sacramento would have wanted above anybody else, maybe not named DeBansa or Peterson. And so they wind up getting their guy at 7. And Kingston Flemings from Houston goes 8 to Atlanta, who got the pick from the Pelicans in the Derek Queen trade from a year ago. So you look up at all of that, And 4 of those 5 guards that were projected to be the next group were gone. And so the question became, with 2 picks to go, would Braden Burries from Arizona make his way to the Warriors? And it was even furthered because there'd been a lot of thought that Nate Ament was going to be the pick for Milwaukee at 10. Well, the Giannis trade ended up allowing the Bucks to get Burries and Ament because they stood on business and picked Burries at number 10 after Morez Johnson Jr. went to Dallas. And yeah, Dusty May taking over as the head coach, leaving Michigan to go to the Mavs. And that was a stunner. The first stunner with Morez Johnson going to Dallas at number 9. But what it told you was, hey, the Warriors are going to have a shot at Burries or Yaxel Lendeborg or Adai Mara. And so they were going to get a guy that had been highly touted and or linked to them in some form or fashion. I think the guy, though, that they had on their board in maybe a different category than everybody else among the players that were remaining was Burries. And then he winds up going to Milwaukee. And immediately from the point at which Burries went to Milwaukee, it was put out there that the Warriors were fielding trade calls at number 11. So to come back to what was going on in what appeared to be a contentious conversation between Joe Lacob and Mike Dunleavy, in a moment where they probably had about 5 different options minimum to think through, and they're trying to figure out, do they want to do a deal with a particular team? Do they want to pick the next player on their board? Is there a debate between who to pick? If it's Lendeborg and Mara, is Ament somebody that had been linked to Golden State as more of a project, but we've all kind of tabbed him fairly or unfairly the Kuminga 2.0 and a guy that maybe Joe Lacob would covet above others in the front office. So what was the debate? There was a late push via a lot of reporting that maybe the Warriors were interested in Hans Steinbach from Washington, who ended up going 14 to Charlotte. So I think the Warriors were really the team that maybe among all of the picks in the top 11 were the most open to moving once it got to be their pick. And it led to that situation where it looked like, okay, what the hell's going on in here? It looked like, frankly, the two were having an argument, although, interesting to think that the camera pans to those guys in that exact moment, right? You've got the draft cam in the war room. When could you catch something? And it seemingly caught maybe one of the more contentious possible moments. Look, it's big business. There's going to be conversations that get heated. I don't know that it's really a big deal at all, to be perfectly honest, but it's definitely something that folks on social media were having some fun with, considering the perception and let's be honest, the reality as well, to a certain extent, of Joe Lacob's involvement in the decision-making process, especially when it comes to the draft. But all in all, Kyle, I would say cooler heads prevail, and the Warriors end up with the Dominican LeBron and Yaxel Lendeborg of Michigan, who is 23, going to be 24 basically on the first day of training camp. So he will play next year in its entirety at 24. But we can get into a little bit about Lendeborg. But yeah, what did you think of the lack of drama and then all the drama? And then immediately after the Warriors do finally settle on Lendeborg, I think cooler heads and calmness prevailed. Then you get Mara go to OKC, Ament go to Milwaukee, Charlotte takes Steinbach, and the Thunder wind up trading up to get Bennett Sturts from Iowa. So the Thunder end up, I think, having a really good night picking at 12, and they swapped with Memphis to move up to get Sturts and gave up a couple of second-round picks to do it. So I think that's a case where a team that really has shown that they know how to draft in OKC continues to show. I think the Warriors would have been thrilled with Mara and Sturts if that had been, the ability to move back and get those two guys. The Thunder end up kind of doing what you would have loved the Warriors to maybe do, or what the Warriors themselves, Kyle, would have maybe wanted to do. But I like the pick in Yaxel Lendeborg. He's somebody that we were talking about on Dubs OT and in our post-season, off-season preview show. I mean, he was always a name at the top of the list in terms of versatile player that could come in and make an immediate impact at the age of 24.
Yeah, well, I think when I saw the War Room thing, I mean, it was funny, and because one of the things that we were talking about when discussing if Kerr was going to come back to the Warriors or not was the alignment between Joe Lacob, Mike Dunleavy, and Steve Kerr, and our first glimpse of what it's like behind the scenes is them arguing was funny to me. But then the pick itself, I think once the Mavericks took what was his name again, the Michigan one?
They took Morris Johnson.
Morris Johnson,
who was widely thought to be the third best
right.
of the three Michigan guys. But it's interesting because now their head coach goes to be the head coach of the Mavs.
And basically picks him. Yeah.
Out of which child did you love more, Dusty Bay? Apparently it was Morris Johnson, who had a great workout, by the way, I heard, with the Warriors, and really an infectious, personality as well. That the kind of guy you definitely want to have in your locker room.
Yeah, and then so once he gets taken by the Mavericks, I'm thinking this is a win because we're either going to get Burries or Lendeborg were the obvious choices in my mind, and they end up with Lendeborg, and I think it's the right pick because especially now that they're not going to have Jimmy Butler, they're not going to have Moses Moody. Really, their only playable wing right now is Guy Santos. So, I mean, you add Lendeborg, and another thing that is also interesting because he has the size to play the four. What happens with Draymond? Does that cut into Draymond's minutes?
No doubt, and I think Lendeborg is brought in to start immediately. I mean, if it's not opening night at the 3 or the 4, I think it's in the first third of this season, to be sure. I mean, to me, part of the reason you take him is because you believe that he has the ability to play right away and make an impact right away. And I think, it was, let's just call it, be truthful and keep it a buck. I mean, it is the safest pick for the Warriors. I mean, you read in any draft guide or preview about his strengths, and we can all see it from watching his time at Michigan. I mean, you look at it. I mean, he is switchable forward with size. He can defend multiple positions. He's a connector. Okay, don't get mad. Don't get frustrated at hearing that. But he's a good passer. He's a good screener. He's a good ball mover, and can finish around the rim. He is. I mean, did you hear what Jay Billis called him? Jay Billis called him Swiss Army knife. That whole thing.
And the Warriors don't have a lot of those guys.
Well, yeah, they have quite a few of those guys, I guess, right? Or I don't know. Do you think? I mean, Draymond's kind of one of those guys. You could say Bonds is one of those guys. I think they don't have one of those guys that has wing size, and I think that's the part. Like, if you're getting into the thing that everybody does when you evaluate your draft prospect, is it best player available versus position of need. And I think the Warriors' position of need was wing over big and certainly over guard, although there were a lot of talented guards. And look, I'll say it. I think Braden Burries would have been the pick had Braden Burries survived and not been selected before the Warriors picked at number 11 overall. But Jay Billis, forget about Swiss Army knife. Jay Billis called him a Swiss Army tank. He called him a Swiss Army tank because of the body type. And yeah, he's got strength and touch. The big question for him is going to be shooting. That can he shoot enough to where he's somebody that defenses are going to honor, or is he going to be one of those guys that basically every team dares to shoot? And we've seen the Warriors at times have an inability to put enough players on the court that can shoot consistently. But I think whether you have Jimmy Butler and Moses Moody or not, it's the kind of situation where you need somebody like a Yaxel Lendeborg regardless. And it's the body type of player that this Warriors team just has not had. I mean, we're talking 6'9", 6'10", 240. And again, I mean, you talk about 3 or 4. I do think he's a 4. I think he's more of a 4 than a 3, to be sure. But I think his offensive skill set in terms of the ability to pass and move, I think that does play at the 3. The question becomes, he's more of a 3 than Jonathan Kuminga, even though he's a bigger body type, let's say, than Jonathan Kuminga was. But the question becomes the shooting, Kyle.
Oh, no doubt. And I was just like checking out his college stats here, and something that jumped out to me, because we are talking about his shooting, was that his 3-point shot improved every year. And last year with Michigan was at 37%. And so it jumped from 33 to 35 to 37. I mean, yeah, if he could stay in the high 30s, I mean, that's something that we wished Kuminga could get to, and not be a volume 3-point shooter. But I think overall he checks a lot of boxes, and it's a win now kind of player. It's not a Nate Ament where he's like an 18, 19-year-old kid that you're going to have to develop. I will say the low-hanging fruit from the War Room drama was that Joe Lacob wanted Nate Ament.
Take Ament. We're taking Ament. And Dunleavy's like, I got OKC on the phone. Maybe we can get Isaiah Joe and Mara, and we'll take the guy they want in Lendeborg. There was a thought in my mind that maybe the Warriors were taking Yaxel because they believed that OKC or somebody would have wanted him, and maybe they were going to do a swap. It was interesting to see Mara go to Oklahoma City immediately after the Warriors took Lendeborg, because I would have thought Lendeborg would have been the perfect fit. And we even talked about it on the morning show with Larry Kruger filling in. We've both been in for Murph and Marcus the last couple of days. That who does OKC really want? And once you figure out who OKC really wants, that's the guy that maybe you should draft. But also the potential, and Krug brought it up. Could you draft the guy they really want and then do a swap where it's basically the guy you pick at 11 for the guy they pick at number 12? And because you picked at 11, you get a little something in return, maybe a bench player that OKC would have wanted off of, if that, would have been, I know they had just traded Aaron Wiggins, but maybe it's an Isaiah Joe, type of a guy that would be available, and you can, throw something else in there. And basically that would be the cost of doing business for doing the swap. You end up maybe with Mara and Isaiah Joe. So, it looks as if that's not going to be the case, although I did make the point on social media, Kyle, that, when you look at teams that make their picks, and usually the trades are leaked or announced relatively quickly afterwards, but often you have teams in these scenarios that will make picks for other teams, and then the trades will get announced later. We already saw that with Memphis, picked Bennett Sturts, but it immediately was, that's going to OKC. And then, OKC ended up moving up to 16, down to 17. And then Detroit came up and picked the Stanford guard, Ibuka Okori, from 21 to 17. So all of those picks were made, and even Ament put on a Miami Heat cap tonight. So the Heat technically selected him for Milwaukee, and he will then be a part of the Giannis trade when it's all said and done. So a little bit of a procedural thing with the way the NBA does draft night and the new league year and all of that. So I was kind of wondering, would there be something afoot there potentially with the Warriors looking to draft a guy that OKC wants and maybe do business with OKC. But regardless, if it's Lendeborg, I think everybody is going to be happy with getting Yaxel Lendeborg. But yeah, it was interesting. Why did it look like Joe Lacob and Dunleavy were arguing in the War Room was something that I texted you. And yeah, the jokes were Joe wants Ament. Dunleavy's like, yeah, I got the Thunder on the phone. Maybe we can do a deal. You had Kirk Lacob just kind of standing there looking nervous, just kind of, just kind of what's going on here? We got to make a decision, guys. The clock's ticking. So I think there were probably 10 things they were thinking about doing. But I would also, with the time crunch, and you're dealing with the frustration of being pissed off that the guy you really wanted went the pick before. I mean, it's the classic if you've ever been in a freaking fantasy draft, right, with your buddies,
Yeah.
and you got your eye on somebody, and one of your buddies takes the guy right before you're about to pick. I mean, you want to throw something across the freaking room, but you also have to make your pick, within the next couple of minutes, and so there's a little bit of time pressure where you can't be flustered. So I think there was a fun element of that potentially in play. But all told, I think the Warriors are pretty happy with getting Yaxel Lendeborg.
Yeah, I know one of the options, and it was reported that they were looking at trading down after Braden Burries got picked, and I think that would have been fine. I mean, it depends what picks you get in return if you trade down. I know, like Charlotte, they have 14 and 18, which would have been interesting, because I mean, the other thing the Warriors need is quality depth on this team, especially with their age and injury history, and you already have two guys who are starters, who would be starters next season, out for at least the first half of the year. But I will say, I think Lendeborg was the right choice. I think it was the safe choice, but that's not to say that he doesn't have any kind of upside, because I think he can do a lot of things well. And JD, you've said multiple times when we brought up Kuminga and Franz Wagner and that draft decision, that sometimes the guy with the higher floor and lower ceiling ends up being the better player.
No doubt.
That could pan out to be what Yaxel Lendeborg ends up being.
Yeah, and so I just think the Warriors, when push came to shove, didn't overthink it, and I think they get credit for that. And I think that's the one thing, if we're trying to read into, and I think everybody was, some of it tongue in cheek, what's going on in the draft room. You got to make a lot of decisions in pretty short order, and the Warriors, I think, held their mud. I think they liked Adimara a lot. I think they liked Hans Steinbach more than maybe the fan base would have. He ended up going to Charlotte. I think everybody was terrified of them taking Ament when Ament was there. It's funny, Ament going to Milwaukee at 10 was one of the bigger locks. At least it had become one of the bigger locks in the latest mock drafts, within the last week. But it was he was going to Milwaukee, and I think a lot of Warrior fans were breathing a sigh of relief at the notion that, all right, we're not going to have to worry about, Joe Lacob falling in love with the potential of another, big wing that's going to take 5 years before he's going to develop, albeit he could turn himself into a hell of a player. The Warriors don't have time for that kind of nonsense right now. And so I think, again, cooler heads prevailed, calmness prevailed, and the Warriors wind up with, I think, the safest and smartest pick. And I don't know that there's anybody, and look, I'm sure there will probably be somebody taken after Lendeborg at number 11 that winds up, there always is somebody that winds up being an all-star in the, back third, let's say, of the first round, or the back 2/3 of the first round, anywhere between, let's say, 12 and 30. Somebody in that back half is going to wind up being a damn good player and an all-star, and maybe a better player than Lendeborg when it's all said and done. I don't, though, think that there were any no-brainers as we sit here right now in terms of future stars that the Warriors should have taken without it being somewhat considered a reach at number 11. And I know they really loved Sturtz, but is Sturtz going to be a star? That's the part we don't know. I know they loved LeBaron Philon. I loved LeBaron Philon. I think he ended up going to Philly in the 20s.
Yeah, he dropped,
and really dropped. A Corey, I would not have had a Corey coming up and being picked in the teens. But he's somebody, Steinbach was somebody reportedly that they really, really liked. Ament has maybe a higher ceiling than somebody like Lendeborg, but it's going to take him a long time to be able to get there in comparison. Like Ament, I think, is a perfect pick for a rebuilding Milwaukee team, right? And so now they've got Burries, they've got Ament, they've got the future picks that are coming from Miami, they've got Hero and a bunch of young players in addition to the future picks coming from Miami. Makes a lot of sense what Milwaukee did in terms of a rebuild, and I think they'll look to tear it down even farther in trying to move, guys like Kuzma, guys like Miles Turner. They can really now go all in, that the Giannis deal is set to become official. So again, safe, solid pick, guy who I think is going to be a good player. Again, will be 24 coming up here basically on media day or right around the time at which the Warriors are going to have their first practice. I think his birthday's at the end of September, if memory serves. But the Warriors get a guy that I think a lot of people would have signed up for them getting once we knew they were going to have the 11th pick going back to Mother's Day and the lottery.
Oh no, yeah. I mean, he was a name, but before we even got into the whole mock draft thing and where the prospects were ranked, but a guy that's someone that I had my eye on and you had your eye on too, JD, as we were kind of, winding down the season and we kind of figured, all right, well, the Warriors are either going to have the number 11 pick or that slight possibility that they move into the top 4. But if they stay at 11, then we would have our eye on Lendeborg. And it's kind of interesting. So I get these notifications from Bleacher Report, and I know it's just like, one of their staff writers who does this little like write up a report, but his pro comp for Lendeborg is Aaron Gordon, which is someone that we wanted like Kuminga to turn into, was like an Aaron Gordon type of player. So I thought that it was just kind of ironic that his pro comp is Aaron Gordon, and that's someone I would 100% sign up for this Warriors team.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so again, the strengths for Lendeborg, switchable defensively. He's a connector. There were a lot of people that were, I think, unsure of exactly where he would go, right? A lot of people thought he could be, right around 10. I think there were some that thought he was going to be deep into the teens, if not maybe even the early 20s. But, there were some late questions about maturity, which I think is interesting for somebody who's an older prospect. He does have a seemingly infectious, lighthearted type personality, refreshing type personality. And that was something that he put on display during his pre-draft interview sessions with the media that he did when he came in and worked out for the Warriors. But yeah, 6'8" and 3/4, 6'10" in shoes, 241 pounds. He's got a 7'3" and 1/4 wingspan. So he's a little under 6'9", again, 6'10" in shoes, but 6'3" and 1/4 wingspan. I'm sorry, 7'3" and 1/4 wingspan. So he is somebody that I think could be extremely disruptive defensively, and the exact kind of guy that you need to be able to combat a lot of the wing players, and maybe even some of the bigger guards that this league now has in a lot of big time scoring positions.
Yeah, I feel like if the 3-point shot doesn't end up being too great, I mean, that's something that it could kind of fall back to, is his size, weight, and wingspan should be able to play on the defensive side of the ball. And plus just his pure athleticism and physicality should be able to get some buckets in the paint. And that's kind of like the fall of Kuminga's. We thought that at a minimum, because of his athleticism and length, that he would be at a minimum a good defender, even if his shot didn't fall. Well, he wasn't. I don't know. I don't know the word, but his shot did not wind up being anything too special, and his defense left a little to be desired.
No question. So yeah, the weaknesses again, as you kind of look through it, older prospect which again, I don't think that's necessarily a big thing at all, especially considering where the Warriors are right now. I mean, if you have this guy for the next 4 to 5 years, he's still not going to be 30 at that point, and the Warriors may find themselves in the next 2 to 4 years doing a massive rebuild anyway. I mean, Lendeborg is the kind of player that I think minimum I feel like he's going to be a 10-year player in the league. Like I think he's that level of just solid and steady. He is relatively new to the game. He started playing basketball basically late in high school, and ended up being a 4-year college player, bounced around a little bit before ending up at Michigan and being a part of their national championship team. Of course, he was hurt during the tournament. And he is somebody that, again, motor occasionally questioned, tends to play a little bit slower, can be left-hand dominant. Again, I'm reading this from NBADraft.net in terms of the overall evaluations in terms of weaknesses and strengths. But all in all, I see a pretty solid player that'll keep it moving on offense, that can finish. The question mark is going to be the shooting overall, but he is versatile and has a great feel and can pass and can understand, I think, a complex offense and can get after it defensively. And I mean, you just look at the numbers. I mean, he speaks to just well-roundedness. I think at a major level. 15 points, basically 14.9, 7 boards, 3 assists, 1.2 steals, 1.2 blocks for his season with Michigan here, as they wound up going to the national championship and winning the national championship. Took a major leap as a perimeter shooter. You mentioned the fact that he improved from 3-point range, was at 37.4, which I think, obviously you wouldn't project it to be that good as a rookie. But if he could get to a point where it's 37 to 38% regularly at the NBA level, I think that would be outstanding. But yeah, that's the big question mark. And again, he's somebody, as the Warriors try to fill out this roster, whether they wind up with Jimmy Butler on the team and coming back, whether Moses Moody ends up on the team and coming back, the Warriors needed a big wing that would have the ability to defend and keep it moving and just play. Like you can play him with anybody, and I think it wouldn't surprise me if he wound up being a starter in pretty short order for this Warriors team, and somebody that very easily could prove himself to be a finishing level kind of a player.
Yeah, I mean right now, opening night, without any kind of moves, and we'll just, for the sake of the conversation, assume Porzingis and Melton are on the team. Who are your starting 5?
Yeah, I mean, if Porzingis and Melton are both on the team, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, you could go big with Lendeborg and Draymond and Porzingis, or Horford in terms of the shooting. I think you're definitely going to want a shooting big with Lendeborg until he proves he can shoot it at the NBA level. But no, I could see Steph, Brandon Pajemski, Lendeborg, Draymond, and Porzingis, or it would be his Dominican counterpart in Al Horford. Could be a part of that. And Al, by the way, already welcoming him to the team as well. Team Dominican Republic. So I think, yeah, as long as you have a shooting big, and look, I think the Warriors should still look to retain Horford. I would look to keep Horford and Porzingis, and we'll see. It sounds like Horford's going to pick up the option. I think you recall, I think it was LeBaron Philon, one of the guys who came in for a workout with the Warriors within the last week, was going through his workout and spilled the tea that Al Horford was working out at the facility with some of the guys, and was given advice on how to learn some of the Warriors system as they were going through maybe some drills. So I think that's a pretty good indicator that Horford's going to pick up the option. and come back for one more year now at the age of 40, with Horford turning 40, about 3 weeks ago, at the beginning of June. So I think you definitely want to have the bigs that can shoot. And I think, right now, today, I think you could also play Guy Santos with Lendeborg. Like you could do both. You could, if you look to move Draymond, you could play. I think Guy will probably get the nod. As the more veteran player at that spot initially, at that 3 spot. But having another guy who could play that position was going to be extremely important. And they have a little bit of, I know everybody's favorite word, optionality, in terms of what they want to do. With whether they start, you could start Pods and Gee and Steph and Draymond and Porzingis or Horford. Lendeborg could come off the bench. You could put Draymond. We've talked about him coming off the bench and play Lendeborg and Gee at different points. Either way, I think Yaxel Lendeborg is going to be somebody that can play 20 to 25 minutes a night immediately for this Warriors team, and they're going to freaking need it. They're going to need it.
And that's not counting all the freaking games that the veterans are going to sit for,
no doubt,
for injury management or injuries if they happen. But here's my thing: is who do you think he would? Okay, because I think he starts the season on the bench, coming off as, I don't know, like a 7th man. But I think he does crack the rotation, and I think pretty quickly. But who do you think it would be for? Do you think it would be for Guy?
If he starts, or
if we're projecting Guy to be the starting 3, Draymond at the 4, and Porzingis at the 5.
Yeah, I mean, I think Yaxel could play I think he could play the 3 and the 4.
Yeah,
I think he could play. I think he could play both. I think he's probably more of a 4, which is interesting. But I do think because of his ability to move the ball, he can also play the 3, which I think is something to keep in mind. He can move the ball, and in ways that I think allow, if you're going to have shooting at the big spot, him to be able to play that position. So I don't, and I agree with Gene as we get into some chats here. They need one more athletic, skilled wing. Yeah, they need one that can shoot. Like that's really what they need now, is a guy that's more of a bona fide, for real type shooter in one of those spots. More chats. Let's do some chats. Absolutely. Appreciate everybody watching.
Some people filing in.
Yeah, people filing in here as we get it going. The real question, Fozzie, great to hear from you, 925 Fozzie. The real question to me with this pick is, what do the Warriors do with Jimmy Butler now? Again, it's going to sound like a bunch of bullshit, but they have optionality. I think they can look to do something big with his contract, or they can look to keep him and wait for him. And look, I don't mean, as much as I like the pick, and I give the Warriors credit for the cooler heads prevailing and not doing anything crazy. And I do think if you look at their roster projection, and only they know, and trust me, they probably know for sure whether Horford's in or out. I'm sure he's told them whether he's in or out, even if he has until I think next Monday to formally decide, if not this weekend to formally decide. I think they know. I think they have an idea how close or far they are with Porzingis. And so I think if they were going to make the case that they were going to look to keep both of those bigs that are both shooting bigs, albeit older and in Porzingis' case, injury-prone bigs, that going and getting a big with the 11th pick wasn't going to be the smartest move. If you were basically going to say most nights 40 minutes, we're going to be going to 35 to 40 minutes, we're going to be going to Porzingis and Horford in some form or fashion. So unless you think that the big that you're going to get has the potential to be a star, and I don't know that Adai Mara would have projected to be a star as versatile and skilled as he is.
Well, he he seemed like an Andrew, and I love Andrew Bogut. He was a great player for the Warriors, but
with a little bit, yeah, Bogut with a little better shot.
Yeah, he seemed like very Bogut-y, like good passer. Just gonna give you like 25, 28 solid minutes a night. Nothing crazy, but yeah, he was someone who I didn't really have on my radar, and then his name started kind of coming up recently.
Yeah, no, his name had been coming up a lot here recently. So let's keep it moving in the chat. Appreciate everybody. Ian J, teams hit and miss on draft picks every year. Anyone that says they know if a pick is good or bad is clownish. Is Ian calling me clownish? Because I think it's a good pick. Look, we can all have an opinion. It's a good pick. I don't know that there's anybody that I would have said I believe is going to be a star that maybe the Warriors should have taken. Like Ament may wind up being a star. It's going to take him some time. I really like LeBaron Philon. Do I think he's going to be a star? I don't know. We shall see as it relates to that. To me, it came down to a lot of guys who were similar in terms of their overall projected talent at different positions. And I think the Warriors, to me, the tiebreaker, assuming there isn't a dramatic difference in terms of your overall belief in their ceiling, the tiebreaker should be position of need, if it's truly a tie. And to me, again, it's just one man's opinion. I think they needed wing over big when you look at the fact that they have a couple of veteran bigs that I think at this point project to be on the roster, or the Warriors may look to go get another veteran big. Like, who's to say the Warriors don't try to get in on Miles Turner if Miles Turner winds up, and maybe they try to get in on Miles Turner in a trade, and they wind up moving Porzingis, and they wind up with a younger or a more prime level center that's a stretch, and they use Porzingis to bring somebody else back. Like, I think those are going to be the kinds of options that they're going to have to look at. But I don't think Mara was so good as a prospect specifically to where you'd say you got to take him, because then you'd have a major hole, I think, still at the wing. And I think we've seen it's hard for the Warriors to find wings in free agency. It's just hard to find those guys because teams definitely covet them. And again, I think the Warriors still need more shooting on the wing.
No, I was just about to say, even though they just drafted
and more shooting in general.
Right. Even though
Pods is not a good enough shooter. He's not a shooter.
Yeah.
He's not a shooter.
Yeah. Even though they just drafted Yaxel, they're still lacking like two wings. They only have two wings right now, and unless you want to play. Oh my God, I'm blanking on my guy's name.
Nate Williams, Malavai Leones.
Or Malavai Leones. Nate Williams and Malavai Leones are too deep at the wing position.
Look, the Warriors right now, if you add Lendeborg, they have 4 healthy players under contract. Now, some of that is semantics because Draymond's going to opt in or opt out. Horford's going to opt in or opt out. Porzingis may be back or not, but right now it's what? Steph, Pods, Gee, and I'm blanking on who the fourth guy is that's under contract right now.
Moody?
Am I going to have to? Yeah. Well, no, healthy. Sorry. Yeah, healthy. Currently healthy, and on the Warriors, and under contract. So yeah, Moody is a no on that. Jimmy's a no on that. It's Steph. It's Pods.
That might be it.
Nah, there's one more because it's been. I'm looking it up right now.
Okay. Not Melton. Not Horford,
I don't know.
Not Draymond.
Exactly. It's it's Will Richard. Will Richard.
Oh yeah, Will Richard.
Yeah, it's Will Richard. It's Steph. Jimmy doesn't count because he's hurt. Draymond doesn't count because he has until Monday to opt in or opt out on the $27.6 million, and we got to get into that as well. Moody doesn't count because he's hurt. Horford has a decision to make. Pajemski is the second one. They've picked up his team option, and he's extension eligible. So it's Curry, Pods. Melton has an option. So it's Curry, Pods, Gee, and Will Richard. And some of those guys with the options are going to be back. But they have 4. And Lendeborg technically doesn't count yet because they obviously have to sign him to his rookie scale contract. Ian J, not at all, JD. I agree with you. I think it's a good pick, but nobody really knows until it plays out. Now, I'm just giving you a hard time. I didn't really think you were coming down. And even if you were, it was no hard feelings. We're all good here. We're just getting into summer. Everybody's feeling good. Kyle's
feeling good.
I got the red cup going like it's February.
I finished my Sapporo. Also,
Kyle's got his Cal mug going because he wants Jaylen Brown to wind up a member of the Warriors. Kyle's texting me at Kyle's in Japan and he's texting me at 3 a.m. Like, can they get Jaylen Brown? Yeah, absolutely. Can they get Jaylen Brown? Can they get Jaylen Brown?
It wasn't the jet lag that was keeping me up. It was the Jaylen Brown trade idea.
Yeah, can they get Jaylen Brown? But no, that to Ian's point, I mean, nobody knows. Nobody knows to be sure. I thought this one was funny. We're talking about the draft room. What were the other 25 people in the room? Yeah, that was a little odd too. And look, you have
it's like
scouts,
an auditorium.
You have scouts and clerical people and people who assist, information finder. You got your cap people there because you're probably talking trades. So you probably have your team council, capologist types that are running through numbers of, if somebody calls you or you call somebody, it's like, hey, OKC wants to do a deal. Well, can we take Isaiah Joe? And if we take Isaiah Joe, what does it leave us in terms of our salaries? You got those people in the room. It also looked like maybe there were just some other people who are just kind of hanging out watching. Maybe from the business side, just kind of hanging out, not really participating. But it's these organizations run a little deeper than I think a lot of people think they do, or a lot of people know they do.
Well, the one that was also kind of funny was when they panned to the Bucks war room, and it literally looked like it was 10 21-year-olds. Did you notice that?
I didn't see that. I missed that. Okay. A bunch of interns.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. A bunch.
Well,
I was like,
they are going a little younger.
Yeah,
they are going younger in Milwaukee. They are hitting the reset. All the Giannis minions had to go.
They have Ryan Rollins in the war room.
Yeah. No, it's exactly. So, all right, let's keep it rolling here. I'll say it. Get the hell out of the draft room, Joe. Yeah, that's what Dunleavy, I think, was saying, was get the hell out of the draft room, Joe. I mean, it really was funny. I'm not gonna lie, and I think a lot of people are curious what the conversation was, because you've got Lacob who's asking some serious questions. I'm kind of running it back through. You've got Dunleavy who's kind of laughing, shrug. He's got the shrug. He's got the phone going. He's like, I got to take this call. And then you got Lacob who just looks, what are we gonna do? Throws his arms up. You've got Kirk who just looks like, you've got Kirk who looks a little nervous. Kirk biting his nails, maybe a little hand to chin. No, he's involved. He's trying to sort through it with Dunleavy, and then Dunleavy's phone rang. It looked like maybe that was the fake phone ring. You ever do the fake phone ring? Hey, I'm sorry, JD, I gotta take this. You ever do that?
I've not, but
that used to be a thing. That used to be a thing.
Yeah, that's
if you don't want to talk to somebody, but nobody really talks on the phone that much anymore because everybody just texts, right?
Yeah.
But it used to be a thing where it was kind of like, oh, hey, Kyle. Oh, hey, Kyle, what's up? We're on the street. Oh, hey, Kyle, what's up, man? Oh, sorry. Hey, hello. And then you just kind of, but you're not really talking to anybody because you don't really want to talk to the guy that you just passed on the street, like that kind of. It was a little of that. It felt like with Dunleavy, OKC's calling, Joe. The league's calling, Joe. We got to tell them who we're going to pick. Or if we don't tell them who we're going to pick, they just move to the next pick, and then we don't get to pick. So
you said you wanted Lendeborg, right? Yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah. All right. We're gonna. Hey, Joe. We're gonna stick with the guy who's at the top of our board right now, which is Yaxel. We like Mara. We like Steinbach. We like Philon. We like the kid from Stanford. We like all of that at this point. So, I think Fozzie's onto something. In addition to some of the others, it was kind of funny to note. All right, we'll keep this thing going for about another 10 minutes or so. Anybody that wants to chime in and jump in and join the conversation, we'll also get into a little bit of kind of what's next for the Warriors. They obviously have another pick to be made tomorrow. I've stopped noting every pick. LeBaron Philon at 22 was the last one that I had on my board. But immediately after the Warriors made the pick of Lendeborg at 11, it went Mara 12 to OKC. Ament went to Milwaukee. Charlotte had 14 and 18 and picked in both spots. They picked Hans Steinbach from Washington, and then Dalen Swain went number 15 to Chicago. OKC moved up to get Bennett Sturts from Iowa. I think that's a great move. Okori, the Pistons moved up from 21 to 17 to get him, the kid from Stanford. And the first round is winding down right now. It looks like Sacramento has traded into the first round. The Kings, I think, were at 34, and they're moving up. Cleveland not going to take that pick, and they're taking a guy that they're taking Alex Caravan from UConn. So that feels
like a Krug guy. Right
interesting pick there. Somebody that's been obviously one of their better players. 23-year-old guy in Alex Caravan. And yeah, he goes to Sacramento. The 6'8" forward at number 29 as we're about to the end of the first round here. Do we have some more chat? Do we have a few more chats we want to get to, and then we can kind of set the table for what's coming up next.
So let's do two more.
All right. A guy who can play now, not a project or a 19-year-old. Yeah, that's Yaxel. So I like that move. I think that's a real solid move. I think it's the kind of move that will, he can come in, he can play, he can help him. Like, if you can pass and play defense, you can play. Immediately. Like, if you can pass and play defense and have some poise and high basketball IQ and can see the floor a little bit, then you can play immediately. If you have the body type that Lendeborg has, you can play immediately. So I think that's something. And, I think if you have the experience that Lendeborg has in terms of, not overall experience, because we talked about he really didn't play basketball till he was like a senior in high school, that level, but somebody that definitely played a lot in college. And I'm sure we're going to hear Bob Fitzgerald say four-year college guy more than a few times when the season gets tipped off there in the middle to the end of October.
I can already hear it. But another note, because we talk about Kuminga and Moody so much and that lottery, but this is the first draft where Mike Dunleavy had a lottery pick. So it'll be interesting to see how Yaxel kind of pans out. But I mean, so far, and Dunleavy hasn't had a lot of first round picks. I think just the one, right? In pods.
Just the one in pods. This pick feels pretty solid and safe, although Pods is a younger player. I mean, he was 19 when he got drafted, I think, maybe about to be 20.
Yeah, because I think he played 2 years in college.
Right. So I think he might have been he was 19, but he was an old 19. He was about to be 20.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah. So I think that was where but I think to this point, I find a lot of people frustrated with Dunleavy. I think Dunleavy's done a pretty good job with the picks that he's had to this point. We can talk about inactivity, and it's really the picks that he's made, which again, he didn't choose the selections, where they were going to draft. He just has to make the pick based on where they're going to draft. It's basically that, which I think he's been solid, but not spectacular, right? In terms of the picks. Although again, Brandon Pajemski, if we're doing a redraft, Brandon Pajemski's a top 10 pick on a redraft in that draft. So they got, I know Pajemski's maligned, but Pajemski is better than where he got picked at 19. in the redraft here now, 4 years later. He's had some second round picks that have panned out. He hasn't had a first round pick every year. Like he's been a pretty solid drafter. And then the other two things that I think he gets the credit for, or at least the evaluation points that you can look at, are the Jimmy Butler trade, which was pretty safe when it was all said and done. But I also think it was working up until the point in which Jimmy got hurt. And then the Kuminga trade, which, I think that's debatable. We'll see if they keep Porzingis or not, what they ultimately got for Kuminga. But I also think he's been hamstrung in certain ways based on ownership and certain constraints that have been put on his ability to maybe fully do the job that he wants to do. So I do think he gets somewhat graded on a curve based on that.
No, I think so too. I mean, I think Dalton Johnson put it out earlier that out of all the picks that Dunleavy has made, his only miss has been Alex Tui in the second round of last year's draft, and I think I think it was Joseph Dicus who joined the program a few times, said that, well, can you really call like Alex Tui a miss if he was like the number 52 pick, right?
No doubt.
So at least draft wise, he's made good picks.
No question. I think he has. Gene, OKC fleeced half the league. How many picks do they have?
Well, that stood out to me too.
Yeah, I mean OKC. Yeah, I mean for OKC to be in the position they're in and then wind up having 12 and 17 coming into the night. They have 2 second-round picks that they use to move up one spot, and they walk away with Sturts from Iowa, a big-time shooter, and Adai Mara, somebody that they can immediately, figures to plug in and play as one of their bigs. I mean, do they look to do something with Hartenstein? Do they look to do something with Chet? That or is it just another body they can throw at Wemby because the Spurs were their kryptonite? And, Sturts is somebody that as a shooter, they're going to have to make some other moves. There's a lot of debate. Would they trade Isaiah Joe? Shooter. Would they trade Kason Wallace potentially? Like they're trying to get their financial house in order a little bit. They've got some flexibility, I think, now in terms of they can trade one of the guys that's been there as a shooter. They can also maybe look to do something with their bigs a little bit that potentially can change the trajectory of things. But yeah, I think, the top 8 were pretty chalk in terms of Washington, Utah, Memphis, Chicago, Clippers, Brooklyn, Sacramento, Atlanta. And then it got a little weird there for a minute before the Warriors ended up with their selection. But I'd be hard-pressed to say a team had a better night to this point than the night that the Thunder had, given the fact that they're basically the second-best team in the Western Conference at season's end, losing in the conference final to San Antonio, and they add Adai Mara and they add Bennett Sturts. That's a hell of a freaking night for a team that's maybe the favorite, or a top 3 favorite to win the title again next year as is.
Well, it kind of feels like, like the Eagles, the past few drafts, it always felt like that one guy that everyone was super high on just falls to them at the end of the first round. That's kind of how it feels like for OKC. It's like Adai Mara is just sitting in their lap, Bennett Sturts is just sitting in their laps. It's kind of like that feeling of the rich get richer.
Big time. No, big time. And so I think that's going to be, something to keep an eye on moving forward here is, what the Thunder do with their flexibility. But yeah, they've got a shit ton of picks coming up still in future years. And one thing that maybe bit the Warriors in the ass a little bit on, not being able to get in the mix. Like I was really, we talked about Aaron Wiggins, and I know our buddy Marcus Thompson brought up Aaron Wiggins from OKC as somebody that the Warriors maybe, buy low type of a prospect. He ended up going to Atlanta for 2 seconds. 2 seconds. And the Warriors don't have a lot of future seconds. The fact that, I think they were looking to buy seconds at different points, and we're looking to, they've used a lot of them in trade. They've used a lot of them in terms of picks, especially years where they haven't had the first-round picks. They've used second-round picks. So I think that's a situation where they're sort of empty in terms of the cupboard, in terms of seconds, and they didn't have maybe the flexibility that they would have wanted to be able to go get somebody like an Aaron Wiggins. I think Aaron Wiggins would have been a great fit for the Warriors, and he would have been that other wing that can shoot, that I think would have filled a real big time area of need.
No doubt. And I mean, I think it's interesting where they're going to go with their mid-level. I mean, because after the Giannis trade, I think the Warriors can definitely now get more creative, and it's not all eyes or all our whole idea or trade pitch is going to be revolved around how do we get Giannis. Now you can start to actually look at some guys.
Yeah, you can. And what, is Trey Murphy somebody? I know they were trying to get, it was reported the Pelicans were trying to get into the second round. Into the first round, into the lottery. That nothing came to fruition as far as that goes. But the big questions now moving forward, as we kind of wrap things up here, Kyle, is what happens with Draymond? It sounds like he's going to opt in. I'll say it. I think him opting in at that $27+ million, that leads me to think that he would be more likely a potential trade option than he would have been had he taken a lesser deal, let's say spread out over 3 years. What do they look to do with Jimmy Butler? Do they look to move off of him to get a big contract back in return, or multiple big contracts back in return? I mean, Yaxel Lendeborg is only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the beginning of trying to reshape and retool this roster as woefully undermanned as they still are because of some of these injuries.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm right there with you. Going back to the Draymond thing, I thought the smart thing to do was to take opt out, but sign a extension, and you tack on another year, and you make a little bit more money that way, but less per year than opting into that $27 million expiring deal. By the way, that just makes him a prime trade candidate.
No, it big time makes him a trade candidate. Portola, now get rid of Dre and Butler. That's one. Ian says, hey, what are your thoughts on the Giannis trade compensation? I thought the Bucks got a freaking haul.
Yeah.
I mean, to get 2 firsts unprotected, 21 and 23, to get Hero, to get Jaquez, to get Khalil Ware. I mean, those are the 3 best young players on the Heat. They got the Heat 3 best young players, 2 unprotected firsts, and the 13th pick today. Yeah. And Jasikevičius. I mean, they got probably the 4 best prospects on the Heat, plus 2 unprotected firsts, plus the pick tonight. I mean, they got 3 firsts and four young players. They got. Right, I mean, there's no way the Warriors could have even dreamed of that kind of a package.
Yeah, because they could have only offered 4 first-rounders, but there's no player that is of the caliber, no young player of the caliber of Tyler Hero, or I mean, even Khalil Ware was a pretty good young player too. But actually, to think about, even if the Bucks want to trade away Tyler Hero, which they could, I think that's still a possibility. Like that could even get them a pretty large return as well.
Yeah, Ian says 2 and 30 for Draymond, not 1 for 27. Yeah, I think that's kind of there. That's kind of along the number. The thing you have to remember, and I think the thing you have to remember is you look at, and by the way, I just saw a note on, as the first round has come to an end, I just saw a note that Lendeborg had the number 1 plus minus of anybody in Division I.
And we're a plus minus show. So
he had the number 1 plus minus of any player in the country this year. So yeah, but here's the thing you have to remember as it relates to the 27 for Draymond. He's getting the 27. So like if you're gonna if you're Draymond, you've got 1 in 27. So it's 27 is the starting point, right? In terms, like, you're not giving up 27. Like, you're not going to help the team out unless you're getting all of your 27 in some form, right? Because you are guaranteed to get that. So now it becomes over 2 years, over 3 years, depending upon how you want to do it. What would you make the next year, right? Like, so if you think Draymond's a minimum player next year, then it's 30 for 2. If Draymond thinks he's a mid-level player next year, then it's more like 33 over 2. If Draymond thinks he's beyond that, then you start. So it might be more like Draymond saying, I would be a mid-level exception type of a player. I want 33 over 2. Or I want, I could make an extra, let's say 9 over 2 years. So it would be, I'd want 3 and 36, right? I want my 27, and then I'd make 3 and, maybe a mid-level 1 year and a minimum the next year, right? 6 the second year, 3 the third year. So you add that to the 27, right? You get 36, but then you divide it, you smooth it out, you divide it by 3, then it's like 12 a year. So instead of 27, it becomes 12, but you have 2 years of him at 12, which I can understand why maybe the third year for that, the Warriors would think it's a little bit pricey, but that's how you have to do the math as it relates to the 27. But yeah, I think, Gene says, well, why did he opt in on the 27? I wonder, and it's not official yet, although it sounds like that's where it's headed, and Anthony Slater's reported that as much. I think he opts in on the 27 because he doesn't think he's going to get the 27 plus the value that he thinks he would command for next year. In essence, he's saying, hey, I want 2 and 33, and the Warriors might be saying, well, we think it's 2 and 30. Like, I find it hard to believe that it would be that small amount. It also could just be the Warriors want him as a trade chip. Yeah. And maybe it doesn't mean the Warriors want him as a trade chip now. But here's the thing. If you have him as a trade chip, if your season goes to hell in a handbasket by February, or you find that you don't need him in February, he could be a tradable asset at 27 at the trade deadline as well. And so maybe it's, hey, Dre, we want to keep you. We don't want to give you 2 extra years because that might in some ways make you harder to move off of later. So, you know what? If you want the 27, you're going to take the 27 for the 1 year. And if we look up in February and Jimmy's not back and Moody's not back and we're 10 games under 500, then we're moving you somewhere. And we're going to try to get another player potentially back that would be of a, close to a $27 million player, or he could be aggregated with other salaries to get a player of an even greater salary structure. So I think that's a lot of the debate as it relates to that. So what ends up happening with Draymond, what ends up happening with Horford and Porzingis, I think are kind of the big questions here moving forward as free agency comes up. And then will LeBron want to come? Will Kawhi want to come? Is there a pathway to get Kawhi? Those are the things that I think.
And Jaylen Brown.
And potentially Jaylen Brown. Yes. And potentially Jaylen Brown. So yeah, we shall see, as I often like to say. All right, Kyle, that's going to do it. Big thanks to you. Big thanks to everybody who watched on YouTube and the KBR Twitter page. And I think we were on Twitch as well. I think it says up on
correct,
the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were on YouTube and Twitch and the KBR social page. For Kyle, I'm JD. We'll be back at some point. Whenever there's news that breaks, right? It's big stuff happens. We'll find the time to go live. It's a little tricky with vacations and Kyle going to Japan and I've got a couple of trips planned here coming up, and I'm still going to be filling in on the morning show as well for the remainder of the week, and I'm back with Greg Silver the following week. So we got a lot to come here, but we'll find some time to go live. We'll let everybody know on social media. Kyle, great to see you, my friend, and we'll talk again soon here, brother.
Yeah, we'll talk again soon. But yeah, I mean, it's already been a far more interesting offseason than last year. So.
Yeah, they didn't have a first-round pick last year,
no first
and
round pick,
and they didn't make
no deals done.
They didn't make an effing roster move until October. For crying out loud, we're like, when are we going to do a show? When are we going to do a show? When are we going to do a show?
Yeah, and, we're mid Niner season.
In fact, the last 2 years we planned on having draft shows, even without first-round picks.
Yeah,
and it's funny. This year we didn't necessarily plan on having a draft show, but we ended up doing, I think, what proved to be our best draft show yet. I think we put this together like yesterday. Like, yeah, the Giants are playing. Let's go live we'll go live during the Giants game.
Our highest picked draft show. How about that?
It is our highest pick draft show. So for Kyle, I'm JD. Thanks to everybody who watched. Thanks to everybody who commented. We'll podcast this out as well. If you hopped in late and you want to go back and listen to the podcast, you can do that, thesportsleader.com. You can also check it out on the YouTube page, like and subscribe, and follow both of us on social media as well. And we'll talk to you at some point soon here. I'm going to say at some point before July 1st, which is the next week. We'll talk to you then.
There you go.
All right. See you, Kyle. See you, everybody.